There's a 1.4 billion budget out there for tuition.
1.9.
There is money there. People are going to put their money there to supplement the education system for whatever shortcomings that they perceive. Can we rally that? How do we rally that? That is a big question. Yeah.
You know, when I saw the survey,
No.
it was very strange. Like, yeah, Singapore teachers, they reported that they are not spending enough time teaching, but the rest of the time,
They're missing hours.
yeah, where's the hours going? I mean, what are they doing?
Hi, I'm Aarathi from EveryChild.SG, and today I'm being joined by not one but three teachers. I am Lennie Chua, principal at Impact Circle Education, Eugene Luo, an education leadership and change management professional who's currently navigating a career transition, and Seraphine Chia, an ex-educator who's now a style coach with 20 years of experience in education, coaching, and training. And they're here to talk about their love of teaching. Thank you very much for joining me.
People who join teaching have a heart to serve.
You want to do more?
You want to do more. There always is something more you can do. There always is something more you can do. We have seen, like, in my years of service, like, burnout is both the structural issue. There are things that it may not be congruent to yourself. It could also be you burning yourself out, right? Teachers who work really hard, because they want to, but where, like, do we expect the system to manage the burnout for them, or is it the teacher? At the same time, because of the way we rank teachers, the way you assign performance bonuses and performance grades, there could be the unseen pressure, right, for teachers. I need to do more, so that even if I don't do well, at least I don't suffer. As years go by, the bar gets risen, right? Everyone gets working harder and harder and harder.
Because everybody's being more.
Yeah.
That's you know.
Yeah, and at the same time, we are always worried, right? You don't want to be last three in the stack ranking. So that is the institutional goal. That may not be controlled.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a myth, right? Because no matter how well you do, they still must follow the quota.
That's right. Yeah, the quota.
Yeah. So it's a myth, and the quota is set by civil service. It's not just for teachers. It's just civil service wide. So can we choose not to follow the quota? We can't. Yeah.
So then maybe the mindset of the teachers is also, maybe you need to reevaluate whether or not that bonus is important, whether you're chasing the money, whether you're chasing the right thing, right? And that is why so many teachers have left and come back as agile, right? Where you then teach and you don't have to go and chase all the meetings and the ranking and this report, that report, right?
Yeah, I think that a big issue, the reason why people are stressed over this is because when we become reporting officers,
Yeah.
we are not used to this change. Like previously, we were only like in charge of kids,
Yeah.
assessing kids, but now we are in charge of assessing adults.
Yeah.
And then we are a little bit like a fish out of water, and then we're like wondering how to. And then we just use the easiest approach, which is just to like maybe say certain things which might not be completely true or without complete context or whatever. And then we say that, oh, you just have to work harder next year and then you get it back to the grade. But honestly, it might not be true. You might work harder, but you might get the same grade or worse. Yeah.
Perhaps it points to something that's unique to the civil service. I was having this conversation with a friend from SAM and we were just laughing about it. What is the KPI of FTS growth? Is it the number of walls not fought? Like, but because you need to measure, right? You need to quantify. And in teaching, many parts of the education service is intangible, right? Like, how do you measure the impact you have a child? How do you measure, like, the nurture of values? How do you measure helping a child turn over a new leaf? So we we measure what's easy, right? We saw things like with results, the number of awards or CCA wins, the number of projects you run, the number of the quality of the event that you run. Are these the core of a teacher? That's something I've been reflecting upon. And the adjunct teachers don't do that.
But why, sir? Sorry,
No, go.
why can't it be a case of everybody has done well? Why does it have to be grade A, B, C, D? Why?
Why can't it not be a pass or fail?
everybody? Yeah.
Why can't we measure success of an education system or a cohort by how many kids who did not report being depressed? How many kids who decided not to take their lives? How the level of kindness being shown in the school? The fact that people are holding doors open, they're wishing each other. It's basic stuff.
Yes.
It is basic civil society behavior.
But there's
Why
very
not mention
little
that
emphasis
on
in
that?
good character. You have what? Civics and moral education once a week. What about on a day-to-day basis? Why are we not rewarding
That
or encouraging that? Being a decent human being.
Lenny?
There's so many issues here.
Yeah.
So which one do you want to tackle? You want to tackle the?
Just
I mean, I was thinking about the performance bonus. In theory, teachers are getting a C grade. That is supposed to be you have done well, but because we associate C not with a good grade, so as human beings we think that that's not well, even though we're actually getting a performance bonus, which means that we've actually done well.
So, but again, so where does that come from, right? So of that ideology and that way of thinking, I'm sorry to say, is rooted in primary school, which is where we start being told what's good and what's not, right? What's amazing and what's not. That's where I don't know, that's where I'm seeing it.
there's very little emphasis on the soft skills, right? It isn't being implicitly taught because there's no measurement. And that's not something that you can measure, except when, let's say, a visitor comes and says, wow, your children are so polite, right? But that has not been valued. So society as a whole has to change.
If I could just add a little bit to that, right? Going back to Lenny's point, a C in the ranking means you meet expectations.
And you get a bonus.
And you get bonus. So but let's be clear about that. Receiving a bonus is not a given in the civil service. So there are instances where you get a reduced bonus or you do not get a bonus. Like, it is a thing. So C means you meet expectations. But again, because it is stack ranking, there is relative. So meeting expectations is not just based on the criteria, right? It's also based on where your colleagues stand. So over years, as the bar goes higher and higher, everyone is being harder and harder to just stay at the same point. So that's the first. And I mean, psychologically, when you meet expectations and then you look at B, which is exceeding in most areas of work, A means far exceeding in all areas of work. Teachers will be wondering, okay, if I do this and I meet expectations, right, what does it take? And teachers, I think they have expectations on themselves, right? They're not just there to just do a job. Most of them really want to do well and do right by the kids. So if I'm meeting expectations, what can I do more to help my kids? At the same time, I think there is not enough discussion of what should we stop doing in schools. Because the tendency tends to be we should do more. But we have only 24 hours a day. We have 7 days a week. We are parents, we are children, we are friends, we are spouses, we are siblings. There's only so much your plate can take. What are the things that we should remove from a teacher's plate to help them do better at their core businesses? So that's the first. The immeasurables. That's the thing, right?
So in the past, sometimes as a school management or middle management, we tell the teachers that it's okay if you don't get a bonus, a good bonus. You just, because, your focus is that you want to do well in the teaching. So it's okay. You go outside, you'll be a very You know, you can actually use your 6 hours, you know, to give tuition outside, and you can be very valued by the parents. And the money that you earn is actually more than the bonus that you will get from MOE. So some of these teachers, they're actually happy when they hear that, no? Because they have a choice. Means that, okay, I can actually don't care about
Switch off a little
yeah,
bit.
I can switch off in school. I don't have to play this game. No, I get a D, never mind. But I will still get valued in a different capacity.
Yeah.
But now they're not. Now teachers are not even allowed to moonlight anymore.
But that is the whole. But that is the whole problem of what we're
I know,
saying,
just saying.
right?
Yeah.
No. I hear you. I totally hear you. And as an individual who is a teacher, if I was in the same, I probably would do the same thing, right? But then when you look at it from the school perspective and the student perspective, then, right, what happens then in the class is they're not being given the same attention, right attention. Sometimes because it's just so overwhelming, the teacher skips a lesson or whatever because they know that they're going to do it in tuition.
Yeah.
Right. And so then we've got this,
Yeah, but not
and
everybody
then we've
can
got this
afford.
arms race because everybody is struggling for this tuition and whatever. So
But not everybody can
afford
afford
it.
to
Thank
have
you very
tuition.
much.
You can't assume
Right.
that everybody can afford to have a tutor.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But I mean, if you think about what Lennie just said, right? Teachers are also logical, rational creatures. Given this system, given the parameters of the game,
Yeah.
how do I play the game?
Yeah, correct. So, okay. So let me ask you this. So, Eugene, you mentioned allowing teachers to teach, right? And then taking away some of the what are we not taking away from the game?
Yeah.
How can we, what's the best way to say this? How can we take away some of those things? And maybe would it be an idea to reintroduce some of these teachers who left the system to come back in to help that division of labor, if you like?
Which we really have like see it on
Yeah.
teachers.
Yeah, so like what Sarah was
Yeah.
saying, right? So you have ex-agitators who left the service for whatever reasons. They come back on a flexi adjunct scheme, so they teach during the school hours, and the commitment is that. Although there is talk now of like increasing the burden that they bear, right? So some of them will have to be involved with setting of papers. Some of them will have to run CCAs. So that's that. I'm also aware there are some like rumblings of perhaps how do you think of a teacher's job? Can the teacher's job be split? So for example, some of them will be in school from 7 to 12 and then 12 to 4. You've taken out someone else. That's another. I'm always a bit careful about thinking about things remotely because I do not wish to publicly walk away. I don't know, teachers just lazy people because and here's the thing, right? There is still some misconception that teachers only work during school hours. And teachers can easily go holidays. Oh no, June is perfect, right? 1 month, 6 weeks. In December, you get 6 weeks. Oh, that's great. And no other job gets that. So we want to be careful with that. I think we first need to be very clear. What are we talking about when we say a teacher's duty? Okay, should the teacher take attendance? Yes, because you need to know whether child is in school or not. Yes, some may be true. Just are there ways to do it? So I know some schools that they use a tap-in system. The child taps in, so you get the report, right? Some of them, if you look at your school, your children in the classroom sitting in the hall, if you take attendance, you have a quick word with that's necessary. Should teachers be evaluating quotations from vendors? That is, I think, a question I'm asking myself. We have regular events in school, right? For example, in primary school, we have primary 5 camps. You have primary 6 here after PSLE enrichment programs for the students who are still in school. The teacher should take care of the pedagogical bit. Like what makes sense, what is safe for the students, that makes sense. But for the administration part of it, the contracting, the negotiating in vendors, to what extent should the teacher be involved in the writing of the contract, the vetting, the back and forth, these take time.
I think it ought to something because I think this is the biggest area where we can actually reduce the teachers' workload. It's the planning of extra activities, learning activities. So if we can do a lot more outsourcing for these, which we are already doing, but it can be even more, then that's where we can actually reduce the expectation on teachers. And also now, I mean, I just do a bit of segue. Because nowadays there are a lot more foreign, non-Singaporean students
yes.
in our local schools. Okay, so I'm just wondering whether there's any way to make it like charge these people a freaking more and use that resource to do some,
We already are being charged.
yeah, they are already being charged more, but even more. Because the focus, the reason why we cannot reduce the class size theoretically is because we don't have enough resources. But it's because we are actually taking on more of these people who are coming in from overseas and working in our system. So, and by being in the local schools, they're actually saving that really very expensive international student rates. So I'm just wondering whether there's any way to tap on this resource now. I mean, that's one thing. The second thing is that can we maybe, I'm sure the ministry is already doing this, but really focus on reducing the number of students in the class itself. Yeah. Because on paper, like I was telling you previously, they have reduced the teacher-student ratio to about 1:13, which is much better than before. But because of the way the schools deploy the teachers, officially, you can still go into a class where there are 40 students in the class.
Right.
Because of the way the school deploys teachers. So maybe we have to kind of lower the bar to the maybe maximum 30 students for a start. I don't know. That's my thinking.
So has it always been like this? Like when you guys initially became teachers, I'm not going to reveal your ages, but when you all first became teachers compared to your years in the system, was it always like this? Was it always so much on the plate? Or what's caused that change? What do you see?
So for me, okay, I was only in the system for about 4 years, 1 year as a contract teacher and then 3 years in service. And this was in the early mid 2000s. Already then, I found it so frustrating that we had so many reports to write, so many committees to be on, which took away attention from the actual teaching. And from what friends have told me now, it's even worse, right? So there are so many ways that, like you say, can we get somebody else to do the administrative stuff? Anything that doesn't require an educator's lens can be given to an administrator. So why are we not doing that, right? And to answer your question about what about what teachers are doing outside of the teaching hours? There's so much marking to do because of the workload that parents or the schools are expecting. And that has not changed. It has changed and become worse. This thing about holidays, they're not sacred, right? And the fact that teachers can only go away during the school holidays, there's additional cost, There's that teacher tax because the cost of air tickets is more expensive. So I can imagine why teachers are fighting and clawing for that bonus because they need it to sustain the lifestyle that they want. I didn't like the system then, which is why I exited. I would hate it even now. Even more now.
I mean, I came into the service around the same time as you, mid 2000s. Okay. So at the time, there wasn't protected leave. At the time, the average working hours per week, the teaching hours was about 40 periods And as a beginning teacher, I had 40 periods. I didn't even get offloading,
Wow.
right? So, to be honest, now the average working hours for teaching is better than at the time. Okay, but of course, the new teachers they have no basis for comparison,
That's right.
so it's hard for them. Yeah. So I think all through the years, the system has tried to protect. Right now we have very strict protected years, which we didn't have. So I think it's changing. Whether it's changing enough, I guess we can do more. We can do more, and we have to do more. Definitely that I've heard recently that the turnover rate for teachers has increased tremendously for whatever reason. So I mean, I'd like to understand from Eugene.
Yeah, why?
So this is not just Singapore, actually. It's a worldwide phenomena. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's a shortage of like 100, 200 million teachers across the world. I mean, simply put, right? We put our money where our mouth is at. If you say that teaching is the basis on which your society is formed, and yet you are not according the resource support required, then the teachers, being rational, logical people, say, look, I'm a great classroom teacher. I deliver great learning. I will do what I do best. I will not want to work with the admin. I do not need to work with committees. I do not need to talk to the reporting officer. Let me just be a private tutor.
Right.
That's a rational response, right? I think, yes, I think things have changed. I joined the service around there, 2007. I joined around there. The teaching hours, the professional development of teachers have improved a lot. So it's mentoring for young teachers. You offload them the first 2 years of their service, get it eased in the system. You assign them buddies. Expectations of the teacher has increased. So COVID didn't help. So now there's a lot of emphasis on mental well-being of the student. Cyber wellness is definitely a thing now. You have to deal with that. The core curriculum does not change. You still have high stakes examinations. Working stakeholders. Now that not just you have emails or the WhatsApp, parents can walk into the office and like schedule a meeting.
Is it true that nowadays there are a lot more students with varied needs in the classroom?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Because of the increase is versus society. Yeah. So we have children with like mild and moderate needs and different kinds of needs. Some are behavioral, some are learning, some are commercial.
So is it tough for you as a
Of course, I think the teachers
level?
The teachers will have to work as best as they can. And Lennie may said the classroom is a 40. It's a real thing, right? So if you have 40, I mean, let's just think of it this way. If you go to any office, you have 40 colleagues. Each of them are different. You have to work with them differently. When you're working in the primary school sector, you're working with 40 kids and you're working with the stakeholders behind them.
Yeah.
Right? So when you deal with a child, very often you have to deal with the parents. And I'm not saying this in the upset, and it's just the way it is, right? And these things don't quite show up in the appraisal of a teacher, right? Nobody's going to say that, oh, your class had no complaints from a teacher, from the parents. That's great. Congratulations, you've done well. That's a given. That's a given. When we think of teaching as, no problem equals a given, any problem equals trouble, what is excellence in this system? What is excellence in this system? Because a good classroom teacher could be excellent with teaching and learning, working stakeholders, knowing their craft, making sure the child's engaged at all times, delivering the best as possible. But let's say the teacher, for whatever reason, decides not to get engaged at all the fluff, the events, or decide to play a minor role in this.
Yes. So just add on, like for many years, the benchmark for the education outcomes is like our performance in PISA or this international benchmarks, of which, of course, Singapore does very well. And because of kind of like research based around all these studies, they find that there is no additional benefit in terms of producing excellence when you reduce the class size. Because all the people that do well in all these PISA tests are from Asian countries where the class sizes are very big.
Yeah.
So that's why the overall they say that, oh, there's no real
Yeah.
statistical benefit
Yeah.
for reducing class size.
Yeah.
Right? However, that is because the measurement is on
Academic.
tests,
Yeah,
right?
it's academic.
On paper tests.
Yeah.
But if let's say like recently, like in the like what we were talking about, 21st century competencies,
Yeah.
if that is the goal, to develop 21st century competencies, then it's very difficult in a class of 40 to have to kind of like do learning activities that actually flesh out these competencies, these 21st century competencies, and that's why it's not congruent. It's like you want to say this like there's no benefit, but what is the benefit that you're trying to achieve? Yeah.
So that's why, as a civil society, like the stuff that we talked about is dying, is lacking.
So just to add on a little bit more, so previously, like because I'm a music teacher, so I teach music and mathematics. Okay, so previously as a music teacher, we are always like shoved at the sideline because we are like not examinable. Okay, but when the 21st century competencies came out, I mean, to the credit of the ministry, suddenly all the non-examinable subjects become more important. Like PE, art, and music, we suddenly have a lot more emphasis on the profession development for PE teachers.
Definitely.
We have academies just for PE teachers, art teachers, and music teachers. And because they realize that because we are not examinable, that's where we have the flexibility to improve the 21st, to teach this and to develop this in the students.
Yeah.
So it becomes very interesting. Yeah. So again, it's what you want, lah. It's what you want to produce. Like, what is the outcome that you want?
So when I was doing university admissions coaching, what I found was that on paper, the academics, you've got your straight A students. But when it comes to the academic portfolio, them demonstrating interest in the subjects that they want to pursue at university, very little outside of the classroom. But that is what the universities are going to assess, They want to see how passionate you are. And the fact that you haven't demonstrated taking responsibility for your own learning shows that actually you're not that good of a student, because doing well in the classroom just shows that you've studied, you've done what your teacher has told you to do. But in order for you to get into a really good university and perform well at university, you need to be an independent learner. And that is only demonstrated by your CCAs, your extracurricular, not even your co-curricular activities, your supercurricular activities. Right? How many of our students actually do that? So supercurricular is when you go above and beyond in the academic subjects. So if let's say students who do Olympiads, those are your supercurricular. Students who do let's say audit university courses or do attend chemistry camp or science camp, that's supercurricular, right? If you're not doing that, you cannot compete on an international level. You've got students from, let's say, the US who have their own side hustles, their own startups. And then our students from Singapore who have maybe done Olympiads but are not doing anything else to beef up their experience, they can't compare. They can't compete with the Ivy Leagues, with Oxford.
So I want to talk about the children. I want to talk about the children that you saw when you first started compared to today. Look, the things that you talk about in university, getting university places was exactly, I was told the same thing when I was applying for university. Okay, you can't just be a good student. You need to be an all-rounder. You need to have lots of different interests. You have to present like as if you know what the hell you're talking about. Okay, every student, I think, throughout the ages were told this. Maybe not our parents, lah. Maybe it was a different time, but that pressure, the notion that you're not just a book smart student
Mhm.
has always been the case, all right? As far from where I'm standing. From a teacher's perspective, you all have seen students through like from the mid 2000s to now. If that requirement is still the same, how are they faring? Like, why are they faring differently? Why are they more stressed? Why is there this, it feels like this heavier load on them? What's happened?
I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to parents and just telling them that times have changed. In the past, yes, you get a straight A's, your future is secure, get a scholarship, and that is the default pathway. But nowadays, it's not the same anymore. Like, I mean, I have a business networking group, so I mean, when I talk to my business friends, they're not looking for straight A students. They're looking for people that can sell goods, sell services, can present well, and these are not exam skills. So I keep telling the parents that, to be honest, you need to know your kids. Okay? It doesn't mean that just because they got good results, automatically you go to IP stream. Not all kids might be suitable for IP streams. So you have to see it's just the child, a self-motivated learner, then fine, go to IP stream. But if you need to nag your child every day, can you imagine if you have nag 4 subjects at PSLE, then when you go to IP, you need to nag for 10 subjects.
Yeah.
Are you going to survive as a parent? Right? And then, because previously I used to be vice principal at the alumni, I've seen some of the students, they are PSLE top scorers, but they come and they struggle and they leave without a cert, The highest level of attainment is PSLE. And these are your cream of the crop, supposedly. So, I mean, in the end, I think as parents, we need to take responsibility for our own kids. I mean, I have 3 kids and they're all different, right? Some are more academic inclined, some are not. So I need, as a parent, to give good advice to my kids. And to do that, I need also maybe I also need good advice from people who are in positions to know these things. Yeah. So I think more sharing, more education. Nowadays we have a lot of parents groups, and in the parents groups they do try to share, So hopefully with time the whole culture will change. We'll see.
Okay, so you're saying children are not faring that well because parents are not faring well.
Very simplistic.
I don't think that's
statement,
true.
but that's part of it.
It contributes to the. So I'll give you an example. You would expect the independents, right? Independent learners. I had parents who would insist on scheduling their children's appointments with their admissions coaches for them because they were in national service and they don't have time. And I'm like, what about multitasking being a life skill, right? Oh, but he's in camp and he can't have access to his phone. Then he needs to schedule the appointment with his coach before he goes back in. It's about all this critical thinking, all this life skill. And if parents are so helicopter and so such protectors who won't give their children the opportunity to learn from their mistakes and build resilience and just fumble along in life, and they'll learn very quickly because you failed, then what's the point of life? And that's why you hear of stories where parents are now going for interviews with their children. Parents are calling. Do you know now that at Polytechnic, there are meet the parent sessions?
Wow.
National service, they have fortnightly webinars with the parents. That's ridiculous. I cannot understand that. So if parents are not willing to let their children sit in the discomfort of life, they'll never learn. If they don't learn it now, when they're in primary school, secondary school, junior college, or polytechnic, that's why they're not going to be able to do it when they get into the workplace.
So before you answer the question, my question to that is, do you think, like you say, if they're not learning it in primary school, they're not going to learn it. But do you think that the primary system allows for that to happen? Given what we talked about wanting to make sure that your child does well within a system that stack ranks itself, is there opportunity for that? If you find these conversations valuable, please like the video, subscribe, and follow us so you may never miss an episode. So grab a copy and let's talk about what matters.